Coming to you live from my parents' house. We got episode 34 of the CHANGAVI Show. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, if it hasn't been more obvious already, we are talking about abortion today. That was basically leaked to Politico, which is a news organization, by someone in the Supreme Court. We don't know who that is. And it was a draft of Judge Samuel Alito's opinion in regards to an abortion case. And through this draft, it was basically revealed that the court decided to overturn Roe v. Wade, which has basically been in power for many years, or basically been instituted for many years since the 70s, and it's basically made abortion constitutional. This wanted to make abortion this overturning of Roe v. Wade would make abortion unconstitutional. Abortion once in this country, and everybody just gets all defensive and has their guards up and really just starts, fighting each other. A document leaked. It literally had a document leaked, and people aren't saying anything. This is a matter of national security here. This is a Supreme Court draft. These are supposed to be some of the documents that should be on lock for a significant amount of time, but yet it's been leaked. This leak of the document might single-handedly be one of the biggest leaks in the country's history. Besides Watergate, I feel like this is up there. This is up there with Watergate for sure. You're leaking in a government opinion. You're leaking a U.S. Supreme Court's opinion to the world. This is beyond belief. You would think that in 2022, the United States government would have a hyper secure system, whether that be through cyber, or whether that be through just documents. American Supreme Court let potentially a landmark decision. This is going to be a landmark decision. Come out like this, it's weird, and that's what leads me to believe that there's more to the surface than we're seeing. Be impartial, right? I understand the side of the individuals, of women going out there and protesting and saying that it's my body, my choice, totally, 100%. There's also another side to this situation, which comes to the constitutional law perspective, which if you were to go right now out into the middle of the street and ask someone to name all 10 Supreme Court justices, they would tell you they would maybe be able to name 3. If they were really politically active, maybe 4 or 5. The thing you have to understand about this whole is you have to understand the people behind the court. And I think this is critical in understanding just any Supreme Court decision, any Supreme Court dynamic that's going down. You have to understand the people behind the court. So let's do it. Start with Clarence Thomas, aka Gen Z's most hated justice. Why do I say this? He's one of the most right-leaning justices ever seen in the history of the Supreme Court, one of the most conservative justices seen in Supreme Court history, and has remained staunchly conservative through his tenure in the Supreme Court since the 90s. He's had a sexual harassment trial against him, so he was our parents' version of Brett Kavanaugh. Not a lot of people like him. He didn't have a great public opinion with the whole trial that went down. He was barely confirmed into the Supreme Court, and he has remained one of the more conservative justices on the court. Brett Kavanaugh, because I feel like that's the easiest one to discuss. Fair share of the past with his sexual harassment, kind of accusations getting tied into his confirmation, been a relatively quiet justice. He obviously has been a pretty partisan figure, if you kind of know how the Senate has run and how they look at him and view him and all of these things. But since he's one of the newer justices, he kind of tends to side with Roberts, who is the Chief Justice, and we're going to talk about him next. So who is John Roberts? John Roberts is what I like to call the floater in high school. You know how in high school, when you had your friend groups, there would be like the people who were like really integrated within a specific friend group, and then there would be like the super popular ones like everybody knew, and then there was like the kid who like was friends with everybody but was never really in a group. That's who John Roberts is with conservative justices more of the time, but he has been known to swing over to the left, and it's his job kind of as the Chief Justice to sort of maintain the pulse of the court, go with what the other justices are feeling, and sort of make those decisions go through. He today is is most famously known for the guy who upheld Obamacare in the Supreme Court, and he's kind of been the middle ground. Elena Kagan is kind of one of the cool old ladies of the court. She's been there quite a while. And she's sort of like the cool old like mom. She's like the cool mom of the group. She's super liberal. And she's kind of on the left. She was nominated by Bill Clinton, I believe, and she's basically what her role right now in the court is since Ruth Bader Ginsburg unfortunately passed away recently, she's sort of upholding that RBG legacy in a lot of ways with her opinions and the way she writes things. She's pretty socially liberal and all of these things. And so her and her compatriot that we're going to talk about next have been really dug in on being kind of the social left sort of wing of the court. Then you have Sonia Sotomayor, who's best friends with Elena Kagan, right? I don't know if they're best friends in real life, but on the court, in terms of their decisions and where they lean, they're best friends. So like they're their own little group. Okay, Stephen Breyer. Stephen Breyer is the guy who's just about to leave. He just wants to get the hell out of here. In June, he is going to be officially retired. He's going to be taken off the Supreme Court and replaced with Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was recently confirmed as the Supreme Court justice replacement for Stephen Breyer. And just kind of, he is from San Francisco, which is fantastic, and I love that. But the man could also give two less shits. I think he wants this thing to be over. He wants to go to retirement and enjoy his life, and who can blame him? Amy Coney Barrett, who was nominated by Donald Trump. She's kind of one of the younger Republican people. The woman, in my opinion, who looks like an evil Pam Beasley. She's also conservative. She's been pro-life from the start. If you watched her confirmation hearing, she's been very dug in on that. That's a stance that has been very public and clear. Do not expect her to switch her vote. There's Samuel Alito. Samuel Alito is the guy who wrote this opinion. He's been pretty conservative. He's been on the right for a significant amount of time. And he's the man who wrote the opinion and was designated to represent this kind of majority clan of individuals that decided to vote. About reading the coverage and also like reading the opinion of Alito is that the opinion, you may disagree with it, but he does bring up some valid points in terms of a constitutional law standpoint that really do make sense. In my opinion, that have the biggest shot of switching are John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch. These are the three that may move the needle, that may move here, may move there. Flips than Kavanaugh, but it's still a very unlikely decision, in my opinion, to flip back to Roe v. Wade being upheld. It's going to be extremely tough to flip this vote. It's 7-3 right now. You need two just favor of the liberal wing of the court. Let's see if I'm interested to see how much of a factor that public opinion is going to play into the court's decision here. Roe v. Wade. For those of you that don't know, Roe v. Wade was the case that basically made abortion constitutional in this country. It's what's led organizations like Planned Parenthood. It's what's led a lot of different sexual health organizations to get government funding and also to have a certain sort of not clout, but a certain sort of standing within the United States. Roe v. Wade was passed way back in 1970. It was a blowout vote at the time, 7-2. And for some reason, before I looked into it, I thought it was a lot closer. I thought it was more of like a 5-4, like edging vote. But it really is a true blowout if you look at it in terms of the different justices on the different sides of the court agreeing with one another. Basically, getting an abortion was constitutional. Opinion is written in Roe v. Wade is very interesting, and I want to get into that now. The fundamental constitutional question that was basically being asked in Roe was, does the Constitution have the right to terminate her pregnancy by abortion? The 14th Amendment broke it all down and found that there were links to the fact that women are allowed privacy within their decisions in regards to having a child or not. So that was what was cited way back in 1970. He had to give his reasoning for why Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood, which was another case that upheld Roe v. Wade, are basically wrong. Alito basically said the reasoning that abortion rights continues to get upheld by the court is weak. And the things that he cited And he stated in his argument was that Roe was extremely loose in the way that it interpreted the Constitution, just written within the 14th Amendment. It's written in various different amendments. And basically what Alito found was that there were a lot of different amendments that were cited to basically give this loose connection, at least in his mind, that abortion and the right to privacy was not like the Constitution did not have the right to impede on a woman's right to privacy to make a decision in regards to their abortion. The way the right and the left work on the court is pretty weird. Because the way the left looks at the court is that, oh, this is the Constitution, and we live in a society that's ever changing. There's a lot of context, there's a lot of different situations that are happening, and we have to interpret the Constitution based on the time that we are in. And then you have a lot of justices on the right who are people called constitutional fundamentalists that look at the Constitution and say the founding fathers of this country wanted things to run X, Y, and Z. And they wrote these rules so that we have to follow them word for word. Signs an executive order tomorrow saying that abortion is constitutional. Everyone has to listen to that executive order. Here's the thing, bro. Here is the thing. Joe Biden's been on the record anti-abortion. He's been on the record anti-abortion back in the 70s and the 80s. Who is to say that those biases won't creep in 2022 and he's not going to sign the executive order? He might not sign an executive order. If Roe v. Wade gets overturned, Joe Biden may not sign an executive order because he feels a certain type of way. Proved. If this decision that stands right now is the one that goes through the court, here's what happens. The rights of abortions move to the states. It's a states' rights decision, which I don't necessarily really have a problem with. I don't really believe in the federal government. I think the states should be able to come up with their own rules. How I feel about abortion is different than how I feel about states' rights. But the rights of abortions would not be a federal government issue. It would transfer to the states. So the states would have their own sort of decisions on what to do. And a lot of the progressive states, e.g., California, Massachusetts, New York, etc., would basically remain the same. Abortion would be legal, Planned Parenthood would still be a thing, etc., etc. They'll continue that abortion funding. But the other states, the more conservative states, swing states, etc., I'm not so sure about how this whole thing is going to happen. I think the really conservative states like Alabama, maybe Texas with Greg Abbott, Florida with Ron DeSantis are going to try to phase out abortion as fast as they possibly can. And so that is going to cause a lot of outrage throughout this country. Is actually going to affect the group of people that are out on the Capitol steps fighting this. Why? Women right now that are fighting this issue in public. It's the women, for the most part. Listen, there's minorities and everything, but who, for the most part, is fighting this issue? It's white women who are middle to upper middle class, college educated, have a decent amount of money, and come from probably decent homes. They can just drive their car. And if it's a matter of personal safety, they will figure out a way to get abortion because money buys options. Who is this really going to affect? And it's poor women who are working multiple jobs because they might get involved in a situation where there's a baby inside of them and they need to get rid of it for whatever reason, but they can't because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have anything, and the state doesn't provide that for them. And I understand this is a shallow take. Oh, abortion isn't going to affect every woman, blah, blah, blah. But listen, it's the truth. And my opinion is one, I believe abortion needs to exist because of medical reasons. I don't believe that I think that women should, be able to have that if they're being affected by it medically. And I also don't believe in the government controlling anybody's body, male, female, transgender. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care who the hell you are. The government shouldn't control your body. That's fucking weird. That's weird. It's just weird. Like, I just like kind of get like I don't want Paul Ryan controlling my body. Like, if I was a woman, like, hell no. Continue to be a crazy complicated issue, and I'm glad I'm doing the research on it because it's super partisan in most places if you even talk about it. So it's not even worth having a civil conversation because everyone just gets heated. But I think it's worth having that discussion and that conversation. And with that, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the CHANGAVI Show.